I never expected to find the notice while cleaning out Mom and Dad's mailbox. The foreclosure warning was stuffed between utility bills and junk mail, its red lettering screaming for attention. My hands trembled as I read it. Standing in their driveway on what should have been a routine visit to check on things while they were away at my sister's wedding venue. My name is Lila, and I've spent my entire life being the responsible one while my younger sister Tessa got all the attention, all the support, and apparently now, all of our parents' financial security. This can't be right, I muttered, pulling out my phone to call the bank. But it was right. Mom and Dad had taken out a second mortgage 6 months ago to fund Tessa's dream wedding. A wedding that had somehow ballooned from a modest celebration into a 3-day destination extravaganza at some luxury resort. My 5-year-old daughter Ruby tugged at my sleeve. "Mommy, can we go inside?" "I'm hungry." "Just a minute, sweetie." I forced a smile, trying to keep my voice steady. 3 years after losing Jake, I'd finally gotten back on my feet, built a stable life for Ruby and me. Now this. I unlocked the front door, my childhood home suddenly feeling foreign. While Ruby raided the cookie jar my mom always kept stocked, I sat at the kitchen table, spreading out the bank documents. The numbers made me sick. They'd borrowed against decades of equity, betting everything on Tessa's perfect day. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom, having the most wonderful time at Tessa's final venue walkthrough. "She's going to be such a beautiful bride." I stared at the string of heart emojis following her message. They had no idea I'd found out. Or maybe they didn't think I'd care. I was just the other daughter, after all. The one who'd married young, had a kid, became a widow at 25. The one who never asked for help, even when I desperately needed it. Ruby appeared beside me, chocolate chips smeared around her mouth. "What's wrong, Mommy?" I pulled her into my lap, breathing in her sweet, cookie-scented warmth. "Nothing's wrong, baby. Just some grown-up stuff." But everything was wrong. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to quietly fix my family's mess. Let them face the consequences of their choices for once. Let them see what happens when the responsible daughter finally stops being responsible. I folded the foreclosure notice and slipped it into my purse. They'd find out soon enough. The wedding venue meeting was exactly as I expected, a parade of excess wrapped in tulle and champagne dreams. I sat in the corner of the grand ballroom, watching my mother and sister fawn over crystal centerpieces while Ruby colored quietly beside me. "Lila, don't you think these gold-rimmed chargers would be perfect?" Mom held up a sample plate that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. "Tessa has such an eye for elegance." I gripped my coffee cup tighter. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about the budget." "Oh, honey, don't worry about that." Mom waved her hand dismissively. "Your father and I have everything under control." The foreclosure notice burned in my purse like a dirty secret. I watched Tessa twirl around the dance floor, practicing her first dance steps. She caught my eye and bounced over. "Big sister, isn't this place amazing?" She grabbed my hands. "I know it's a bit more than we originally planned, but when you know, right? Like when I knew about Jake?" I couldn't help myself. "Remember how you all said we were too young, too rushed?" Tessa's smile faltered. "That was different." "Right. Because it was my choice, not yours." Ruby looked up from her coloring book. "Mommy, can I wear a pretty dress like Aunt Tessa?" "Of course you can, sweetie." Tessa jumped in before I could answer. "You'll be the most adorable flower girl ever." "Mom, we need to add Ruby's dress to the budget." Actually, I stood up, gathering Ruby's things. "We won't be needing that dress. Ruby and I won't be in the wedding." The ballroom fell silent. Mom's face paled. "What are you talking about? Of course you'll be in the wedding." "No, we won't. Not unless you both start being honest about what this wedding is really costing." Tessa's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" I pulled out the foreclosure notice. Mom lunged for it, but I held it out of reach. "It means this fantasy wedding is about to cost our parents their home." "Did you know that, Tessa? Did you even ask? You went through our mail?" Mom's voice shook with anger, not shame. "Someone had to." I took Ruby's hand. "I'm offering to help plan a reasonable wedding that won't bankrupt anyone. Take it or leave it. How dare you try to ruin this for your sister?" Mom's words echoed across the empty ballroom. After everything we've done for you. I laughed, the sound harsh and foreign. Everything you've done for me? Name one thing. The silence that followed was all the answer I needed. I walked out of the ballroom, Ruby's small hand in mine, leaving my mother and sister standing amid their expensive dreams and borrowed time. 3 weeks after Tessa's fairy tale wedding, I got the call I'd been expecting. Dad's voice crackled through my phone, heavy with defeat. "She's gone," he said. "Took Marcus on their honeymoon and hasn't come back. Won't answer our calls." I stirred my morning coffee, watching Ruby eat breakfast through the kitchen window. She was outside with Ben, our neighbor, who often helped watch her before school. "Gone where?" "Europe, we think. The bank called again yesterday." Of course they had. I took a slow sip, letting the silence stretch. Let them feel it for once. The weight of asking for help, the ache of being abandoned. "Lila, honey," Dad's voice cracked. "We need." "Don't." I cut him off. "Don't say you need me now. Where was that need when Jake died? When I was working 2 jobs with a toddler. That was different. You were always so independent, so capable." I had to be. The words exploded out of me. "You and Mom made sure of that." Ben glanced toward the kitchen window, probably hearing my raised voice. I turned away, lowering my tone. "I'll come over tonight. We can talk then." Walking into my childhood home that evening felt like stepping into a museum of Tessa's life. Her wedding photos already dominated the walls, her recent achievements displayed prominently. My own wedding photo, the only one Mom had bothered to frame, was still tucked away in the hallway corner. Mom sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by bills and bank statements. "We thought she'd be back by now," she whispered, not looking up. "She promised she'd help once they returned." Like she promised to pay for the flowers? The cake? The honeymoon? I picked up a credit card statement. The numbers made me dizzy. "You don't understand," Mom snapped. "Tessa needs." "No." I slammed the paper down. "You don't understand. Tessa doesn't need anything. She wants." "There's a difference." Dad stepped between us. "Please, Lila. We're going to lose the house." "I know." I took a deep breath. "I found the foreclosure notice weeks ago. I tried to warn you, remember?" Mom's head snapped up. "You knew? And you didn't help." "Help?" I laughed, the sound bitter and sharp. "Like you helped me when Jake died? When I needed childcare for Ruby? When I lost our apartment?" The silence that followed was deafening. Through the window, I could see Ruby's old swing set, rusting and unused. They'd promised to fix it for her last summer. Another broken promise in a lifetime of them. "I'll help," I finally said. "But this time, it's going to be on my terms." Ben caught me in the driveway as I loaded boxes into my car. "You're really doing this?" he asked, leaning against my trunk. "Moving back in with them?" I shoved another box in harder than necessary. "Just temporarily. Until they get back on their feet." "Right." He crossed his arms. Like how Tessa's honeymoon was temporary. 6 weeks had passed since my sister vanished to Europe. 6 weeks of increasingly desperate calls from my parents, of mounting bills and missed mortgage payments. Of Ruby asking why we kept going to Grandma and Grandpa's house so much. "I don't have a choice," I said, but the words felt hollow. "You always have a choice, Lila." Ben's voice softened. Jake would say the same thing. The mention of my late husband made me pause. Jake had warned me about my family's patterns before he died. "They'll never stop taking," he'd said, "until you stop giving." Ruby came bouncing out of our house with her favorite stuffed elephant. "Mommy, where will Mr. Snuggles sleep at Grandma's?" "In your special room, baby." I forced a smile. "Remember? The one next to mine. My old bedroom. The one that still had glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling from when I was 16. The one where I'd cried myself to sleep after Jake's funeral while my parents took Tessa on a spa weekend to help her process her grief over losing her brother-in-law." "I can watch Ruby more often," Ben offered. "Give you some breathing room while you figure this out." Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Tessa just called. She's in Paris, says she needs time to find herself." Isn't that wonderful? My hand tightened around the phone. Finding herself. On our parents' maxed-out credit cards. While I prepared to sacrifice my independence to save their house. What is it? Ben asked, noticing my expression. I showed him the text. He let out a low whistle. And they still expect you to move in and fix everything? That's what good daughters do, right? The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. Ruby tugged at my sleeve. Mommy, can we get stars for my new ceiling too? I looked at my daughter, then at our small but happy home, then at the boxes packed with our life. Jake's voice echoed in my head. They'll never stop taking. No, baby, I said slowly, starting to unload the trunk. We're not getting stars. Because we're not moving. Ben smiled. Good choice. My phone buzzed again. Mom calling this time. I let it ring, focusing instead on carrying our boxes back inside. Let them figure out their own stars for once. Despite my initial refusal to move in, I still found myself at my parents' house every day, sorting through bills and making payment arrangements. That's how I discovered the renovation plans scattered across Dad's desk, blueprints for converting my old room and the guest room into a welcome home suite for Tessa. It's just in case, Mom explained when I confronted her, arranging flowers in the kitchen like everything was normal. She'll need somewhere to stay when she comes back. When? I picked up one of the credit card statements. You mean if she comes back? After maxing out your cards in Europe. Mom's hands trembled slightly as she adjusted a lily. She sent a postcard from Milan yesterday. Said she's finding her artistic voice. And what about Ruby's voice? I gestured to my daughter's drawings on the fridge, the only trace of her existence in this house. She asks why her artwork keeps disappearing while Tessa's wedding photos multiply. Don't be dramatic, Lila. Mom turned away, but not before I caught her removing one of Ruby's pictures to make room for another wedding photo. The front door opened, and Dad walked in with paint swatches. The contractor can start next week if we... He stopped short seeing me. Oh, you're here. Obviously. I snatched the swatches from his hand. Champagne pearl for Tessa's sitting room? Really? Now, honey. Don't honey me. I threw the samples down. You're 3 months behind on the mortgage, but you're planning renovations for your runaway daughter? We have to be ready, Mom insisted. She'll need us eventually. Like I needed you? The words escaped before I could stop them. Where was this dedication when I was sleeping in my car with a newborn after Jake died? Silence filled the kitchen. Through the window, I could see Ben's house next door, where Ruby was having dinner, again. He'd been watching her more often lately, understanding my need to handle this mess. That was different, Dad finally said. You were always stronger than Tessa. No. I pulled out my phone, showing them Tessa's latest Instagram post, her toasting with champagne at some Italian resort. I wasn't stronger. I just didn't have a choice. Mom reached for the phone. But she looks happy. While you're about to lose everything. I stepped back, my decision crystallizing. I'm done. No more helping with bills, no more financial advice. Figure it out yourselves. But the house is not my problem. I grabbed my purse. And neither is Tessa's homecoming. Because trust me, when she does come back, it won't be to help you. I left them standing in their kitchen, surrounded by renovation dreams and mounting debts, finally understanding that some rooms can never be remodeled into something they're not. The bank's final notice arrived on a Tuesday. I found my parents sitting in their dark kitchen, the letter unopened between them. But it wasn't the foreclosure notice that broke me, it was the airline confirmation email on Mom's phone, showing a first-class ticket to Milan. You bought Tessa a ticket home? My voice sounded strange, distant. With what money? Mom clutched her phone. She needs us, Lila. She's having a hard time. A hard time? I grabbed her phone, scrolling through Tessa's messages. She's demanding you fly her home first class because she's too stressed to handle a regular flight? You don't understand. I understand perfectly. I turned to Dad. You're losing the house in 3 days, but you're spending thousands on a ticket for the daughter who bankrupted you? Dad wouldn't meet my eyes. We had to use your emergency fund. The words hit like a physical blow. The emergency fund I'd been building for them over the past month, working extra shifts while Ben watched Ruby. That money was for the mortgage. My hands shook. To save your home. Tessa is our home, Mom whispered. Something snapped inside me. I walked to the living room, straight to the wall of wedding photos, and started ripping them down. One by one, they crashed to the floor. "Lila, stop." Mom screamed. "No." I pulled down another frame. "You want to lose everything for Tessa? Fine, but you don't get to pretend anymore. Not about her, not about me, not about any of it." Dad grabbed my arm. "That's enough." "Is it?" I yanked free. "Because I don't think it is. Tell me, when was the last time you asked about Ruby? Your only grandchild? When was the last time you remembered Jake's birthday or visited his grave with me?" "We've been busy. Planning for Tessa." I laughed, the sound bordering on hysteric. "Always Tessa." "Well, guess what? She's not coming back to save you. She's coming back to take whatever's left. Get out." Mom's voice was ice. "If you can't support your sister, support her? I've spent my entire life in her shadow, watching you sacrifice everything, including me, for her. And now you're losing your home, and you still can't see it." I walked to the door, glass crunching under my feet. "You know what the difference is between Tessa and me? I actually loved you. She just loved what you could give her." "Lila, please," Dad started. "Save it." I opened the door. "You've made your choice. Again. Now you get to live with it." I left them in their shrine to Tessa, surrounded by broken frames and broken dreams, finally understanding that some families can't be saved, not when they don't want to save themselves. 3 months passed. I focused on Ruby, on work, on building a life that didn't revolve around my parents' drama. Ben helped, watching Ruby when I needed time, never pushing for more than friendship, but always there. Life settled into a new normal. Then Tessa came home. I was in my front yard, helping Ruby with her chalk drawings, when a taxi pulled up to our parents' house. Tessa stumbled out, designer bags in tow, looking nothing like her Instagram photos. Behind her, Marcus carried their newborn, a baby I hadn't even known existed. "Lila," she waved like no time had passed. "You'll never believe what happened." I stood, positioning myself between her and Ruby. "Let me guess. You ran out of money. The bank took the house." Her voice cracked. "Mom and Dad are staying in some horrible motel. They won't even answer my calls. Wonder why." She stepped closer, the baby crying in the background. "I know I messed up, okay? But there are parents. We have to help them." "We?" I laughed. "There hasn't been a we since you left them with nothing but wedding debt and Instagram posts." I was finding myself. While I was finding foreclosure notices. My voice rose. While I was watching them spend their last dollars on your first-class ticket home. Marcus approached, bouncing their fussy baby. "Tessa, maybe we should." "No." She turned to him. "Lila's going to help. She has to. She's the responsible one, right? That's what Mom always said." The words hit like a slap. "You know what, Tessa? I'm done being the responsible one. Done fixing your messes. Done watching our parents destroy themselves for you." "They're staying at the Red Pine Motel," she said, her voice small. "They need somewhere to live. They had somewhere to live. You took that from them. So did you." She snapped. "You could have helped." Ruby's small hand slipped into mine. "Mommy? Who's that lady?" I looked down at my daughter, then at my sister with her new baby, and finally understood. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about breaking cycles. "That lady," I said clearly, "is someone who never learned that love doesn't mean taking everything until there's nothing left." I turned to Ruby. "Let's go inside, baby. Ben's coming over for dinner." "Lila, please," Tessa called after me. I paused at the door. The responsible thing would be to help them. But sometimes being responsible means letting people face their own consequences. I closed the door on Tessa's protests, on the past, on the weight of being the other daughter. Some debts can never be repaid, and some shouldn't be. While cleaning out Jake's old desk drawer, I found the letter. 6 years had passed since his death, but his handwriting still made my heart skip. The envelope was marked, "For when you finally stand up for yourself." Ruby was at school, and Ben had taken the day off to help me sort through things. We'd been doing more of that lately. Not just sorting boxes, but sorting life too. Through the window, I could see the sold sign in front of my parents' old house. A young family would move in next week, their dreams untainted by our family's history. You okay? Ben asked, noticing the envelope. I nodded, unfolding the letter with trembling hands. My fierce, beautiful Lila. If you're reading this, you've finally done it, chosen yourself over their expectations. I always knew you would. Your strength wasn't in enduring their neglect, but in knowing when to walk away. Ruby will learn from your example, just like you learned from their mistakes. Sometimes the best inheritance we can give our children is showing them how to break cycles. Love always, Jake. The doorbell rang. Through the glass, I saw my parents standing there, looking smaller somehow. No Tessa this time. She'd left town again last week, leaving them with empty promises and borrowed money. You don't have to answer, Ben said softly. But I did. One last time. Mom spoke first. We found a small apartment. Your father's taking extra shifts at the warehouse. That's good, I said, meaning it. We thought. Dad cleared his throat. Maybe we could see Ruby sometimes? Start fresh. I looked at Jake's letter in my hands, then at the family photos on my wall, Ruby and me at the park, Ben teaching her to ride a bike. Moments that proved family was something you built, not something you bled for. Once a month, I said finally. Supervised visits. If you're serious about starting fresh, prove it. Not with words or promises or money you don't have. With time. With presence. With choosing to see what's in front of you instead of chasing what isn't. They nodded, understanding the gift and the warning wrapped in my words. After they left, Ben helped me finish sorting Jake's things. We worked in comfortable silence until Ruby came home from school, bursting with stories about her day. Mommy, can we have pizza with Ben tonight? I caught Ben's smile, saw the future in it. Yeah, baby. We can. Sometimes revenge isn't about making others hurt. It's about refusing to let their choices hurt you anymore. Sometimes the best revenge is simply living well, loving fully, and leaving the past where it belongs, behind a closed door. With a sold sign in the yard.